The LOC says South Africa faces a funding shortfall for 2010. Woolworths to pay a special dividend, plus 20-week sales are up, and consumer prices in the US declined by 1%, the most on record. The all share closed up 9.5 points at 18,756, gold at $7.52 a fine ounce, a barrel of Brent at $49, the rand at 10.28 to the dollar, 15.61 to the pound, and the euro at 13.09.
Sasfin's David Shapiro is in the studio with us. David, not surprising given what we heard from Lonman, given what we heard from David Julie last night about the platinum sector as a whole and the whole financial crisis that we've seen. Not surprising that Impala is saying, well, maybe we need to, or they're struggling to find those same swap ratios again in terms of the Imvela deal.
Sure, I can understand that. And I suppose I haven't seen the deal, but it just shows you how fast the platinum prices come down and just how the industry has been turned upside down. So I suppose Impala, looking at the numbers now, also trying to gauge where they'll be in 1, 2, 3 years' time. Very difficult to do a deal, particularly a deal like this where you're only going to get the paybacks, some way down the line.
And particularly that involves 4 companies, a whole lot of complex transactions and interrelated transactions. They're saying, look, we're not prepared to pay 35 in Platts shares for 100 Northams at the moment.
I'm sure it'll be done somewhere along the line. I'm a bit sorry for Northam because it would have, it would have done them. It would have been a great deal for them. But still, they've got the Booysendal project, and I'm sure they'll be able to raise money for that and continue with that.
Well, hopefully the negotiations are ongoing and they managed to reach a settlement. What did you make?
Poor old Lazarus Zim. I think he was going to get to.
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll have
to
see
what happens. It's not Christmas party time yet, but. I think he stood to make about 50 million.
Yeah, which would be useful for Christmas at this point in time. So we'll have to wait and see there. What did you make of Woolworths? Sales up only 8.7%.
I think the whole idea of that was at the annual general meeting, but they've declared a dividend giving you back most of the profit that they made on the sale of their financial services division. But it seemed okay. It just shows you how things are slowing down. I've got no real comment. The market marked the price down. I thought that they might have responded to the special dividend, but the share price was down. I think it's just a return of capital, all in all.
Well, Felicity Duncan was at the MasterCard Emerging Markets Index, the Worldwide Emerging Markets Index, and there was a city-wide survey, Johannesburg coming in 11th out of 65 countries, which is surprising, but this is what Mike Schisler had to say.
Overall, Johannesburg came in 11th place out of 65 cities, and the Durban and Cape Town areas came in the top 40, which is actually good news for South Africa. I think, however, there's a sub-theme that 15 of the top 30 cities all came from China. And certainly we've got a lot to learn from them in a sense. We did very well as a positive on the business environment, the cost of getting credit, the cost of starting a business, and the ability to do that is very cheap in South Africa overall. The financial center of Johannesburg also did very, very well. But on the negative side, obviously, we also have to deal with crime. We also have to deal with the high costs of telecommunications, and certainly also the fact that our education system is not delivering the knowledge workers that we need for a modern economy going forward, and we would need to look at improving that situation to sustain long-term growth.
It's going to be, it is one of those competitive problems. Where do we fit in as a country in a global community, and particularly with China, though they are slowing?
Mike talks about knowledge workers. I'm not sure what that. I mean, he presumably means people with skills, but I think that's the that's the issue. It all comes down to education and also a long-term plan. The country's got to have a long-term plan of where it wants to be in the next 10, 15 years, and how you're going to get there. And I'm not sure we've got something like that. I'm sure that the government will tell you we have, but Geoff, you've got a plan for for a very, very competitive environment, particularly with the development of the Chinese and the other emerging markets. I don't think we're in a unique position. I think America has to do the same, but I think they've got a much higher skill base, much better education levels.
Talking about the States, the Dow down about 1.33%, but consumer inflation down lowest on or the most on record.
The
down
surprising thing is that's what triggered the downturn. It suddenly shocked people into fears about a recession. And what the worry is, this is not good deflation. The fact good deflation is when you produce something at a lower price, but the people who produce it still make a profit. In this case, what happens is excess capacity is being dumped onto the market. In other words, apparel, motor cars, electronic goods are being dumped at lower prices. That means lower profits, and eventually lower profits lead to job losses and so on. So, yeah, oil price coming down is good deflation, but this is not good deflation.
Well, it's not good if you're OPEC.
Yeah.
David, looking at the local markets, top 40 up 3 points. Financials up quite strongly, though.
They were, and it's surprising. I'm not sure whether they're starting to build in that we're going to have an interest rate cut. I couldn't quite, reconcile why they were that strong. I think what is happening, we're finding quite a bit of few institutions who've got excess cash starting to buy for the long term, and they might have come in today and believed that at these levels, it's as good as it's going to get. So very strong there. Resources were also strong, but they petered out, and industrials seem to be a bit mixed. Very difficult to gauge what's happening on the industrial market. It's one day up, one day down in certain shares.
SAPI up strongly. Any particular reason there?
I think they've just been hammered ahead of the rights issue too much, and it's a bit of a rebound from that. I couldn't find any evidence to suggest why it had gone up, but if you look when they announced the rights issue, I mean, the shares were absolutely clobbered.